Undoubtedly, continuous curvilinear capsulorhexis has been the greatest discovery in cataract surgery for the last 25 years. It is impossible to imagine modern-day cataract surgery without CCC, so it is heartbreaking for us when we see something like this. Ouch, that was the surgeon's heart. Don't bother, that's the alarm bell. The surgeon's pulse has just hit 150. Rhexis run off and intermittent cataracts is because of three interrelated factors: a tense anterior capsule, high intralenticular pressure, and a shallow anterior chamber. Well, tension is the root cause for all the problems. Let me share with you a small analogy. These are three equal-sized balloons filled with different quantity of air. Consequently, tension within each of them is different. When we try to burst them, the balloon with the higher pressure bursts quite easily. On the contrary, it is difficult for the low-tension balloon to burst. This philosophy holds good for tense capsular bags as well. It's clear now that tension indeed is the root cause for all the problems. Then, the obvious solution would be to relieve the tension. We propose a 3-step exercise to handle this. Flatten the anterior capsule, decompress the bag, and to perform a 2-stage CCC. The first step would be flattening the anterior capsule. Cohesive OVDs like the sodium hyaluronate is a great tool to achieve this. This ensures positive pressure and greater control of the anterior capsular tear during rhexis. Decompression of the capsular bag is the most important step, which is primarily responsible for relieving the tension. It can be achieved in many ways. One way is to attach a capsulotomy needle to the aspiration handpiece of the bimanual IA system. After making a small nick in the anterior capsule, the needle is introduced into the subcapsular area and a small amount of cortex is aspirated. This relieves the tension within the capsular bag. Then, the rhexis is initiated and continued with the needle itself. The process of decompression is achieved as and when required. This technique ensures greater control of the CCC and minimizes the chances of rhexis runoff. The same technique is demonstrated in the next case as well. After making a small nick in the anterior capsule, a capsulotomy needle is introduced into the subcapsular zone. The cortex is aspirated. This technique is great to release the intracapsular tension. The next important strategy would be to do a 2-stage CCC. After decompression of the bag is done, the initial smaller rhexis is done, as it is easier to control. Then, phaco is performed. However, we need to realize that doing phaco in a small rhexis is slightly tricky. After implanting the lens in the bag, the rhexis is enlarged to an optimum size. Another way of decompression of the bag is the phaco punch technique. The season eye with a shallow anterior chamber and a swollen lens. In the phaco punch technique, the anterior capsule is opened with a short burst of phaco. By doing this, a simultaneous decompression of the bag is achieved. We can see the cortex being aspirated into the phaco probe. Once the intracapsular tension is released, it's easier to control the initial capsular tear and complete into an optimal sized rhexis. Another similar case of phacomorphic glaucoma. The chamber is shallow, the lens is swollen. A short burst of phaco is given. The anterior capsule is opened up and the cortex is aspirated. We can see here the cortex literally jumps into the phaco probe. This ensures decompression of the bag. And once the tension in the bag is released, it's easier for us to to control the anterocapsular tear and perform a good rhexis. Another way to do rhexis in these swollen lenses is to use the vitreous cutter. This is again a bimanual technique. The left hand is having the irrigating cannula. With the cutter, we make a small opening in the anterior capsule. Once the opening is made, the subcapsular cortex is aspirated to relieve the tension. Once the intracapsular tension is released, it's easier to control the capsular tear and perform a rhexis of the optimum size. Sometimes things don't go the way we plan. In the event of a rhexis runoff, how do we manage? In this case, the rhexis is run off in the subincisional area. The capsular flap is cut with scissors. We decide to proceed with phaco with low parameters. The phaco could be completed uneventfully. The intraocular lens was placed in the bag with the haptics oriented 90 degrees to the runoff meridian. The next case exemplifies that doing phaco in a small rhexis is tricky. In this intermittent cataract, a small rhexis could be achieved. But while doing phaco emulsification, the subincisional rhexis has been broken. In slow motion, we can see that the ultrasound energy has ripped off the CCC margin. After removing half of the nucleus with phaco, we decide to convert, fearing a complication. The rhexis runoff had indeed travelled posteriorly and caused a PC rent. This case reminds us of the fact that rhexis runoff has a great potential to cause PC tears. After doing vitrectomy, an intraocular lens was placed in the sulcus. Intermittent cataracts are a headache for us. Unfortunately, they are plentiful in our country. Femto laser is a great tool to do rhexis in these cataracts. However, till the time we can afford to have this luxury, let us stick to something more simple. The 3-step strategy demonstrated in this video is safe, easy and effective, which can be learned, practiced and mastered by most phaco surgeons.